Let's ask the most important question. What is happiness? Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I am honored and delighted to be here. What I'm talking to you about today is happiness. I'm the Chief Business Officer of GoogleX and a serial entrepreneur and a businessman, which is not the typical person that should talk about happiness, right? I mean, what do I know about happiness? I'm also an engineer, which is normally the most unhappy people on earth, right? Who is like, we're very serious, if you want. But the reason I wrote Solve for Happy is because I set myself a mission, a personal mission, which is to make 10 million people happy. The story of this mission started more than maybe 17 years ago. But it also accelerated in the last 3 years, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. I'm the typical successful executive, if you want. At a very, very young age, I was a director in a consumer goods company. I was making a lot of money. I had all of the things that we work so hard to achieve, and I had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful wife who gave me 2 amazing children. Everything in life seemed to be going okay, but I was very unhappy. So I had to find a way out of my unhappiness. And my way to get out of my unhappiness was actually very interesting. I had to read myself out of the problem, right? I brought every book I could get on the topic. I listened to every lecture. I watched every documentary I could get, and I tried to understand what was going on. And somehow, I couldn't understand anything. For some reason, the language in which those lectures and books were spoken and written was not speaking to my mind at all. My engineer's mind could not get what they were talking about. If you don't tell me what the problem I'm trying to solve is, as an engineer, I cannot solve it. I started with a very, there was a point around 2 years into my research where I decided to change my approach completely. And I changed it in a very interesting way. I said to myself, look, I was working very well. This machine was happy until a few years ago. Right? Something broke, something changed. As an engineer, I told myself that means the design of the machine is correct, but the environment changed, or maybe one part needs replacement. In my software engineer's mentality, I thought maybe there is a bug in the software, right? There is something in the operating system that's not working accurately anymore. If I could find a few lines of code that I can change and run every time, when I feel unhappy, I will feel happy again. Any man could ever go through. In 2014, when my son Ali died due to a preventable human error in the simplest of all surgical operations. When you put 5 in a row, Ali left our world, literally in 4 hours, from having him over for a wonderful vacation at home to leaving our world was 4 hours. Seen Ali before he died, he was 21 and a half when he died. If you had seen him before he died, he was tall, handsome, like all of you. He was strong, he was smart. He was a pride of my life, right? And then he left. And surprisingly, we were not unhappy. Not me, not my daughter, not his mother. We were all peaceful, we were all okay. People would come to Ali's memorial, they would be crying. We would be the ones, dressed in funny t-shirts and hugging them and telling them to calm down and explaining to them what we understand about happiness or about death and life. And you could visibly see them go quieter, calmer, then smile, and then walk around our house, literally laughing out loud, remembering memories of times they spent with Ali. If you didn't know, you would actually think that this was Ali's birthday party, not his memorial. And I don't know if you believe that, but many of the people I loved, who I lost, actually knew. They did things before they died that indicated they knew they were going, right? And Ali, for the last 6 weeks before he died, he asked every single one of his friends, what happens to us when we die? It was the only topic he spoke about for 6 weeks. And then he asked each of us to do one thing differently. And you know, with his typical fun smile approach, he looked at me and he said, Papa, I know it sounds strange that your son tells you this and all, but you know, I want you to change the way you live. And I was like, okay, Mr. Yoda, what do you have in mind, right? And he basically said, you've done really well making the world a better place. I worked at Google for many years, and Google truly makes the world a better place. But his words were, I want you to never stop doing that, but I want you to do it depending on your heart, not only your mind. I actually had a lot of things in my life that I was trying to get into my life to make me happy, right? I was successful and rich. I bought the latest mobile phone, and I bought expensive clothes, and I bought cars, and I was going on vacations. I was trying to do those things to bring happiness into my life. But it never really worked. Maybe sometimes it worked for 4 minutes, right? You buy something new, you look at it, I love it, and then you forget it. And I started to ask myself, why is nothing outside me making me, helping me find happiness? And the answer was actually very interesting. Happiness, and have you ever went looking for your keys, or people like me who wear glasses, have you ever put your glasses on and then started to look for them everywhere, and you couldn't find them, right? You have your keys inside your pocket, and you're concerned, so you start looking everywhere, and you look under the table and in the kitchen cabinet, and you can never find them, right? Why can you never find them? Because they're in your pocket already. How can you find them outside when they're inside your pocket already? Okay? And that actually is the truth about happiness. And if you don't believe me, look at this. We are born happy, and then one day, somebody, probably your parents or your teachers, they said, hey, stop this playfulness and fun. You're not supposed to be happy. We want you to sit in school for 8 hours. Don't talk. And then when you come back from school, we want you to go to tutoring, right? And when you come back from tutoring, don't even say the word TV. There is no point in being happy. Life is all about success, right? So what did you do? You started to do things in life. You started to install apps in life that performed that function that you call success, right? And in the process, you achieved success, but screwed up your battery. You achieved success, but you fell out of happiness, okay? And my happy list was a list at the time of 92 items, okay? Those 92 items were basically the answer to the statement, I feel happy when. I just got as many data points as I can, right? I feel happy when I have a good cup of coffee. I love coffee, right? When I have a good cup of coffee, I feel happy. I feel happy when my daughter Aya smiles. Truly, when she smiles, even if she's 100 miles away, I feel happy, right? I feel happy when I learn something. And I actually urge all of you to develop your own happy list, by the way. So when you have time tomorrow or whenever next week, just sit down and write all of those things that make you happy. Just the act of writing them, by the way, is going to make you happy, because you're going to remember all of those moments that make you happy. But more importantly, you will realize something amazing. You will realize that most of the items on that list are things that you can invite into your life every day, every week, okay? And when you know them, you start to invite them into your life a lot more. And when you know that they are so easy to achieve, you will have that gratitude in you that actually makes you happy that life is okay. There are so many things within my reach. Now you can describe that in a very simple equation. I call it the happiness equation. Okay? Your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should behave. Right? This happiness equation truly is the algorithm of happiness. Right? Your brain is constantly going through every single event of your life. Even as we sit right now, you're looking at me, you're feeling the temperature of the room, you're seeing the glaring lights, you're feeling the hardness of the seat, okay? And your brain is taking every one of those events and saying, this meets my expectations, I'm happy. This misses my expectations, I'm unhappy, right? If it misses your expectations, you're unhappy for a very interesting reason. Because unhappiness truly is the most basic survival mechanism. Think of this physical machine that we have and every biological function in it as a survival mechanism. Your heart is pumping blood around your body, not because it likes to pump blood, not because it likes the rhythm of, it's not music here. It just wants you to stay alive. Unhappiness is the lamp on the dashboard. Let me explain that to you, right? Your brain is looking at everything around it, crunching a seriously large amount of information, okay? You know, of everything that's happening, feelings inside your muscles, feelings inside your heart, and, you know, everything, right? And things outside you. And if it sees that everything is okay, it stays calm. It doesn't do anything. It says, yeah, you can feel happy. You can feel peaceful. It's fine. Don't worry. Life is okay. There is nothing to worry about, right? The minute it sees something that misses its expectations, it realizes that this might be a threat, that you might actually end up in a situation that it doesn't want you to be in. So it lights the dashboard, okay? It gives you a red light that says, stop whatever you're doing and pay attention to this. This is important, okay? And that lamp on the dashboard is the feeling of unhappiness. It's the feelings of concern. It's the feelings of worry. It's the feeling of regret. All of those negative emotions are your survival mechanism to tell you that this is time to stop what you're doing and start worrying about this. And so I started to research that issue of the events of life. And so I'm going to ask you to do a quick test to understand what I mean by that, okay? This test, I'm going to ask you to do two things at the same time. One of them is I'm going to ask you to think of something that makes you unhappy, and the other is a very simple arithmetic. I'm going to ask you to add a few numbers on the screen, okay? Ready? So the first part of the test, I call it the blank brain test. The first part of the test is I want you to close your eyes for 20 seconds and think of something that makes you unhappy, then keep that unhappy feeling inside you as you open your eyes, okay? Go ahead, 20 seconds. Now, I want you to keep that unhappy feeling. Success in this test is to stay unhappy and add those numbers that appear on the screen. Just a few numbers. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to show you the numbers again, but try to stay unhappy, please. All right, nobody did it. Anyone added the numbers? No. Anyone stayed unhappy? No. You were looking at me, the room was fine, we were having a good time, right? Then I asked you to think of something that makes you unhappy, right? No event, nothing actually happened in the real world when I asked you that. What's the only thing that changed? You started thinking, right? The minute you started thinking, it's almost as if your brain is an unhappiness on demand machine. Would anything have changed in the real world? Nothing at all, right? So if you were unhappy because you miss your girlfriend, right? And you kept thinking about the fact that you miss your girlfriend for 20 days, right? She would not show up. You understand that? Nothing in the real world will change, right? So from one side, you have to understand this. It's not the thought that makes, it's not the event that makes you unhappy. It's the thought that makes you unhappy, right? And that thought is a totally useless thought. It's totally useless, right? Then I demonstrated to you that we actually have the ability to stop that thought, right? I just distracted you by asking you to add some numbers, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Adding numbers is problem solving. It happens in a different part of your brain, right? The other thing I want you to understand about this brain is this. There are three types of thought. The first type of thought is what they call insightful thinking. Insightful thinking is what I asked you to do when I asked you to add the numbers on the screen. When you're problem solving, you're doing insightful thinking. Insightful thinking happens on the right-hand side of your brain. It first happens here in the, I don't remember, one of those, right? And then it sends the answer back to the verbal communication engine of your brain to turn it into words. So in a study in MIT in 2009, they put people in MRI machines, and they gave them word puzzles. And what the people did is that part of their brain lit up while they were solving the problem. Then this part, the verbal communication engine, started to light up, and up to 8 seconds later, they found the answer. The other useful part of thinking is experiential thinking. For you to be able to add up the numbers You actually had to observe the numbers on the screen. You had to observe the world as it really is. Okay? And to be able to do that, you're also using the prefrontal cortex and your insula, both on the right-hand side or in the middle of your brain. Right? The third type of thinking is what they call incessant thinking. Incessant thinking is the kind of thinking I asked you to generate when I said, think of something that makes you unhappy. Okay? This is almost the background thinking process of your brain. This is when you leave your brain space, it goes like, hey, I have time here. Let me just analyze the past for a while. Maybe I can find something to learn there. Right? And so it starts to bring up thoughts over and over and over and over. So most of the time, they're just making you unhappy and you're taking no action about them. Now, as long as you're thinking in that red zone, you're going to feel unhappy. Okay? As long as you're thinking in the useful part of your brain, you can feel happy. The brain does that thinking in the background for some very strange reason. Okay? As a survival mechanism, understand the difference between physical pain and emotional pain. Physical pain is when you cut your finger, right? You take your hand away and you feel the pain to protect it. The thing about physical pain is that when the reason for protection goes away, the pain stops. You may still have the injury, but it's healed enough to be protected, and you will not feel the pain anymore, correct? However, the difference between emotional pain and physical pain is what? I have the ability to regenerate the emotional pain on demand. Every time I have some free cycles in my brain, I can actually regenerate the event as if I'm cutting my finger again. Okay? I can tell myself the story of my girlfriend told me something annoying yesterday. It felt bad when she did it. That's the emotional pain. But then the next day I can think about it again and feel bad again. Right? And then the following day I can be sitting with my friends and I tell them and feel bad again. And then every time I need to, I can regenerate the pain, okay, to feel bad over and over and over. Now, how stupid is that? So the interesting thing is this. When I asked you to stop thinking about whatever it is that you were thinking about, this, by the way, is called the suffering cycle, right? When I asked you to stop whatever it was that you were thinking about and add the numbers, what did you do? You told your brain, go ahead, brain, add the numbers. What did your brain do? Sir, yes, sir, I will add the numbers. Right? It's as simple as that. The minute you tell your brain to do something, it does it. So as a matter of fact, to let your brain linger in those thoughts is a choice. You can actually make a choice and tell your brain, thank you, brain, for telling me this information. This is totally useless. Get me a better thought. Simple as that. Right? Is that we're solving it with the wrong parameters. Okay? It's not that life is bad. As a matter of fact, our life is much better than the vast majority of humans. There are people, in Africa that are starving to death, right? There are people that, have not got the education that you have. There are people that don't even have, anyone around them that is friends or family or whatever. There are some very tragic situations in the world. We're actually quite okay. But when we solve our happiness equation, the equation of events minus expectations, we use the wrong parameters. We use the wrong parameters for two reasons. One is called 6 and the other is called 7. The 6 is what I call the 6 grand illusions. The 6 grand illusions are things that the modern world has taught us to believe that are actually not true. When you solve your happiness equation thinking, one of them is the illusion of thought. When you solve your happiness equation thinking that your brain is you, okay, you don't solve it correctly because you're using the wrong information in the equation. So there are six of those that we have been taught by the modern world that are actually not true at all. Then there are 7 blind spots. The 7 blind spots are features in your brain that were actually designed to escape the tiger. Okay? So think of it this way. If a tiger is attacking you, your brain has no reason to tell you, oh my God, look how wonderful the patterns on the skin of this tiger is. Right? It doesn't care. Right? It wants to tell you, oh my God, look at the teeth. Right? There is something wrong. This is why those 7 blind spots drive your brain to constantly show you what's wrong. Okay? And so when you factor events in that you see into the equation, you're factoring events that are not the truth, but a grumpy, pessimistic version of the truth. Okay? Now, if you fix the 6 and the 7, most of the time, you will end up solving the equation accurately, and you will find that you become happy. It's not only about you, I love you and I want you to be happy, but I want everyone to be happy. I have 10 million people to reach, or now even more. So please tell people that you know, okay? Take it on yourself, like I'm taking a quota of 10 million, take a quota of 100 or 1,000 people yourself, right? Tell everyone that you know about what makes you happy. Ask them to tell everyone they know about what makes them happy. And who knows, maybe within 10 years, we will make Korea the happiest nation on earth, right? The other thing is I also love my son Ali, so please, 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 if I told you something that made you happy today, you know, send a happy wish to Ali, that he's happy wherever he is right now. Okay? Thank you.
What I really want to ask is, did you already have this deep thought about happiness, or it was the tragedy that happened to your son that motivated to write about this happiness?
So I had the model a long time before Ali left. I started to work on the model, as I said, almost at around the time when Ali was born. So I started to get that extreme unhappiness when before Ali was born, but I started to work on it maybe when he was age 3 or 4. I developed the model with him, but the model was missing some components. So, for example, the chapter about death is a chapter that I actually only researched when Ali died. Now, the reason I wrote the book and spread the word is the death of Ali. But here's the interesting thing, and life will push you when you don't do what you're supposed to do. So my view of it is that we go through tragedies because we just are lazy to take the step that the tragedy is going to take us to. Now, sometimes it's hard to expect exactly what life wants you to do. So you know, in any case, I think that the tragedy of loss, especially the loss of Ali, in an interesting way, completely solidified my model. Because in a very interesting way, when I'm now stuck in traffic and I compare that to losing Ali, it's nothing. It just doesn't feel like anything anymore. When my boss is a little annoying and I compare that to losing Ali, it just doesn't mean anything at all. As you go through it, yeah, maybe you'll get a tragedy, but if you want to avoid the tragedy, try to be ahead of life. Try to not leave yourself to the point where life says, hey, I need you to be tested. I need you to wake up. I need you to stop what you're doing and do what you're supposed to do here in this life. Okay?
How could you find the energy to push on when there is actually a struggle that is the hard struggle that is called reality?
The trick here is to realize that the pain should not turn into suffering. Most things in our life happen because of us. Now, I saw that you're fit, okay? So you understand that fitness is actually not that difficult. For some people who are overweight, they think that fitness is impossible, that life is unfair to them. I grew up for a very long time believing that my metabolism was against me, that I was born with the wrong metabolism, and that's why I was a little overweight, right? Reality is this: if you eat healthy and go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, you're going to be fit. Simple, right? If you know that, that's not enough to be fit. Now, I will tell you, not everyone in the world can start and become the chief business officer of X. Not everyone can start and become a successful engineer. Not everyone can start and be as fit as you, right? But everyone can be a little more fit tomorrow than he is today, okay? And when you're a little more fit tomorrow, you will be more fit to become more fit.
And I just want to wonder that you shared us about your target, which is like 10 million people, 10 million happiness. Like for the future plan, either you have any future plan for tomorrow? If you reach the target, do you have any next plan for after this project? To try and make everyone that crosses my path happy. Okay. In my personal definition, in my mind, I think I will feel satisfied if we included happiness education in primary school education. Okay? If you would go to school, learn geography, learn physical exercise, and learn happiness, right? If I actually achieved that, then at least I would feel that the future generations are not going to be raised the way you and I were raised,
Okay? My message is very straightforward. You can be successful and happy at the same time. We should be raised for success and happiness. Okay? If our world was managed through happiness, not through competition, not through ego, not through all of the other things, I think our world would be a much, much, much better place. We should actually work to make people happier, because if we make people happier, we make the world a better place. Can I do this alone? Absolutely not. I can only do it if you do it with me, and if you do it with me, and if we actually go out there and say, hey, this is important. This is important. I'm going to at least try to change my little world. I'm going to try to change the people around me. And then together, hopefully, we reach 1 billion. Who knows? Maybe 7 billion. Thank you.